I think it's extraordinary times, and I think it's quite interesting that what's going on generally over the last few weeks with Trump and with Musk. I think it's quite extraordinary that this is all happening in Utah now, and then it will be in other states, just as gold seems to be breaking out into the national consciousness, not because the media is getting behind it, but because Trump and Musk are suddenly really highlighting it by saying things like, yes, we're going to audit Fort Knox, and Musk saying, yeah, we'll probably live stream it as well. I mean, and then you've got, gold reaching, being difficult to buy in America. I mean, this last 2 weeks, we had a situation where you couldn't buy gold, investment grade gold in America, unless you were willing to pay $52 an ounce. That was certainly when we supply one of the states with gold for their reserves, and that was the situation. If we wanted to buy it in the US, $52 an ounce, when, just for reference, it's normally about $1.50, $2 an ounce. And instead we were buying it in London, like a lot of people were, and shipping it over. I mean, that's an extraordinary set of events, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Something's going on. Maybe, a lot. There's a speculation that U.S. Treasury is bringing back a lot of physical gold, maybe that they leased out over the decades. Who knows?
What the U.S. Sorry, are you saying the U.S. government bringing back gold that they've leased out? Potentially?
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about maybe Donald Trump said the other day, he was with President Macron, that the gold at Fort Knox might have been stolen. So they want to do an audit. So if there isn't enough gold there, if it was stolen or leased out or whatever, if you're going to have an audit, you have to bring back a lot of the physical gold, because it would be a scandal if there's not, all the gold isn't there. So yeah, I mean, and the huge amount of physical gold that going into the U.S. and COMEX as well, which usually isn't really a physical market, that big a physical market, has led a lot of people to speculate that it could only be one institution that would be allowed to bring in so much gold, physical gold, because, as you know, it's a very political metal, I would say, and that would be maybe the U.S. Treasury. So, but it's interesting that you're telling me that instead of paying $1.50 to get gold for Glint in the U.S., you're paying $50. Is that right? Premium?
Yeah. So basically, I mean, we're supplying one of the state's reserves with millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars of gold every couple of weeks. And this is investment grade gold we're talking about. So this is the big, is it 400 ounce bars or 12.5 kilo bars, those kind of ones that you see in the James Bond movies. And to buy that kind of metal in the US was difficult. Nobody wanted to sell it, Mario. You couldn't, you could not buy it unless you were prepared to pay $52 an ounce. And because people weren't selling their gold, even the refineries were going, okay, well, if no one else is selling their gold and wanting to have such high premiums, we'll sell it for the same. So the premiums all jumped up. This was, of course, driving the price. And then what happened was, you could buy it in other parts of the world, and we went to London. But even in London, the premium started to go up. We managed to get it for about $5 an ounce. But I was hearing that, JP Morgan and other big bullion banks were just hoovering up all the gold. And of course, we had headlines, didn't we, in the UK about the Bank of England, there being at the Bank of England a 2-week wait for you to be able to get hold of your gold.
No, and, 4 to 8 weeks, actually.
4 to 8 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
Of course, the Bank of England is not a transactional vault. Like, if you look at the kind of Brinks vaults, which are much more transactional, there's gold, metal moving in and out of those things. They're set up for the movement of metal. The Bank of England, really, I think the gold normally just goes in there and doesn't really move for decades. And sometimes, of course, the ownership just transfers hands and it stays in the same location. But of course, there you had a situation where people know they wanted it out of London and they wanted it in America. So the gold, they wanted it out of the vaults. It was going to Switzerland. It was getting refined into the smaller 100 ounce bars or kilo bars that that the COMEX uses and then shipped to America, and a lot of it being hoarded, and for what reason? That's the question.
Yeah, $64,000 question.
Yeah, and there's lots of kind of speculation about that. People are worried about that maybe Trump would be putting tariffs on the UK, which is a major gold hub, would mean that the price of gold would be going up. I mean, it could be 25%. If he puts a 25% tariff on all goods coming out of the UK, then that would be presumably a 25% increase in the price of gold, being driven by that. So there's some really significant concerns. But at the same time, you've got to think about the gold that's in Fort Knox. They're talking so much about it, Mario. As I understand it, that gold isn't recorded on the US books as at mark to market, is it?
No, it's at $42.22. That was the last time they revalued gold. That was set in 1973. It's the statutory price.
Okay, here we go. They're started now. So I see Marlo Oak sit down. Let's get the audio. Let's listen into this. This is going to be exciting.
Getting another bank account where the state can push gold, vendors can request to receive, or I'm sorry, the state can push dollars, vendors can request to receive gold. It really is that simple. There's technology out there where the state simply sets up another account. If vendor service providers request to be paid in gold so they can preserve their purchasing power, state pushes dollars like any other bank account. The vendor service provider receives gold. With that, Treasurer may want to add a sentence or two, because and then I do have the third sub.
A sentence. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Marlo Oak, State Treasurer, and I'm happy to just answer questions given the time constraints.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back to the committee for questions on the bill. I'm going to ask you, Representative, you have a $5 million fiscal note?
Yeah, the third sub takes that away.
Oh, third substitute takes that away. Why don't we adopt the third sub right now to Senator Harper for a motion?
Thank you. I move that we delete entitle and body House Bill 306 per sub and replace it with third sub.
Okay. And it looks like the sub is 196,000.
Yeah.
So just be aware.
Yeah.
Okay. The motion is to adopt third substitute of House Bill 306, precious metal amendments. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That sounds like that passes 3-0, and it is adopted. The third sub is adopted. We'll go to public for public comment.
I don't think they've approved that yet. I think they're just saying that they're adopting they've approved the adoption of the amends to the bill.
We'll now bring it back to the committee. If they start the video feed, we have to end committee right then. So that's, so we'll go back to Senator Harper for a motion on the bill.
Thank you. I move that we pass out third substitute House Bill 306.
Okay, the motion before us is to adopt third substitute House Bill 306, precious metal amendments by Representative Hyrie. Would you like to sum?
I'll waive. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of adopting or of recommending third substitute House Bill 306, precious metal amendments in favor of recommendation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously 3-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
As before us.
Wow.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Wow. That was quick.
So there's only 3 in the committee, I guess, or?
Yeah, it all happened so fast. I don't know exactly how many people in the committee.
So it's gone through, yeah.
So what? Yeah, it's gone through to the floor. So they didn't discuss it. They didn't have time to discuss it. I think it looks like they were started off late. It seems that in this situation,
it's almost like the opposite of what happened in 1913, when the Federal Reserve Act was passed on Christmas Eve. They didn't have enough senators there to vote it through, so it just went through. But this is a good thing, though, in my opinion.
Yes, it's running out of time. The same strategy, and it's working really well for them. Those legislators will be over the moon. That it's now going to be. It's got through the House 7-0. It's got through the House floor 71-0, and did they say 3-0? It went through this committee. 5-0. I think there were some people voting from afar, But this is incredible. I mean, this is really, the momentum on this is just absolutely fantastic. This is the state of Utah's, HB 306 precious metals bill. And it's all about introducing an alternative precious metals backed electronic payment system, one authorized by this. Well, I don't know if the word authorized is the right term, but stood up by the state, adopted by the state, or mandated by the state as a choice that people and vendors have, and using the constitutional Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1 of the US Constitution, which says that any state may make its own currency only as long as it is gold and silver. I mean, this is remarkable.
So will there be like eventually a Utah gold payment app or something like that?
Well, I think the way, obviously, if it's still got to get through the Senate floor, but I mean, what an amazing momentum here we've got.
And the governor has to sign it into law, doesn't he?
He has in June. I mean, this is all going to be happening in the next kind of 10 days.
Yeah.
But then once it's all been voted for by the House and the Senate, then there's a process. I think it's in June when the governor will sign off the bills. He does have a power of veto, but I think he'd be a very brave man to veto against the will of both all the senators and the House reps, which on such a unanimous kind of voted through bill. And then they will be, looks like what they'll be doing is they'll be creating an RFP, a request for a proposal. They'll be going out to any vendors they think that can be able to supply this service for the state, and then they'll be awarding that to somebody, and then it'll be put into action. I'd like to think it could be as early as kind of they could be choosing that as early as September, and the whole thing could even be live before the end of the year. I mean, this is meteoric.
Yeah, and I assume Glint is one of these vendors that are applying to.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got to see what the RFP would be,
Yeah.
and obviously we're very happy, I think, to contribute to helping, residents in America be able to put themselves onto their own personal gold standards, so to speak. So yeah, we'll be watching this with interest. But I think a lot of the legislators actually have Glint app on their phones because it's a very easy way to demonstrate to people that, hey, look, this is happening already in America. There are products like Glint out there where you can already use gold in transactions, and a lot of the people, then the question then comes up is, why does the state need to get involved, Mario? Well, I think there are three reasons that I call them the three T's: trust, taxes, and taking. So trust is all about, if the state's involved in something, there's a level of trust if it's being audited and things like that. Taxes, we've discussed during the live stream, taxes means that hopefully, well, there really should be no capital gains tax on such a system, even at the federal level. And the last one, taking. And you mentioned what's happened in the past. Can you just explain what's happened with gold confiscation back in the 1930s?
Yeah, I mean, in 1933, FDR with Executive Order 6102, what that order said is that if you had more than $100 in gold coins, you had to hand it in, and that if you didn't, you could go to jail or be fined $10,000. So, and the reason he did that is because the U.S. government was going bust, because they had issued, I think, $7 billion in gold-backed Liberty bonds to finance World War I, and they were going to come due, those bonds, and they were payable in gold, and the whole banking system was under threat. Like banks were failing left, right, and center. That's why they did that. And ever since then, we haven't had really sound money in the U.S. nor anywhere around the world. That's the way I see it. One question I wanted to ask you: how would I guess it's too early to ask you how the fees would you be able to transact with no fees in this electronic system, or would there be something? I mean, there's something called seniorage, which in the old days, for example, you could take your jewelry to the mint, and they mint a coin, and the mint would take 1% as payment. I'm assuming this would be free. People would be able to receive and send gold for free in this state electronic system.
I don't know exactly what's going to happen because obviously I don't know what the solution would be that gets adopted. But I think that, I think you've got to look at the systems like Glint and look at the systems like PayPal and things like that and see how do they operate. These are privately created platforms that cost a lot of money to develop and need to be able to run with, operations staff behind it. If you look at the kind of PayPal model, I think it's, residents can send, individuals can send money to each other free of charge. But if you send it to a business, the business has to pay when they're receiving that fund. So something like that, I'm kind of envisaging would be how it might work in a state-based gold currency platform.
I see. Jason, I have to excuse myself because I need to go now.
That's okay. No, thank you for coming on and talking to me about this. I mean, it was all a bit short-lived and a bit of an anticlimax. I was expecting lots of discussion and debate and maybe some difficult questions from some of the senators. But there you have it. I mean, if you blinked, you might have missed it. It charged through the Senate, and now we've got a situation where HB 0306, the bill for electronic transactional gold-based currency system, has flown through the Senate, now heading towards the Senate floor, the last barrier, I think, for this legislation before it could get adopted. So Mario, thank you very much for coming on and discussing this with me. It was great to have you on. Look forward to seeing you again.
You're welcome, and thanks for inviting me.
No worries. Speak soon.